Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 304 of the MTGGoldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have the full crew here this week, kicking things off with the owner of MTGGoldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Hey Seth, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad. We have some interesting topics today, but before we get to that, we got another co-host in Krim. What's up today, Krim?
Yo, Seth, what's up? It's been a good one.
Not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah, I mean, we have some topics. There isn't any super big news in the Magic world this week, honestly. We wanted to talk about Commander Legends. Not spoilers, but actual playing the format. The set is now out on Magic Online. It released in paper over the weekend, so I think we've all played it a little bit. Have you played it at all, Krim? Have you gotten a chance to do any Commander Legends yet?
No, I have not, actually. I mean, I've gotten to see some physical cards, the stuff I ordered, but other than that, haven't actually played any of it.
Well, me and Richard have done some drafts, and we wanted to talk a little bit about the actual experience of playing the format. Also wanted to talk Kaladesh Remastered and Historic. We've gotten some kind of big historic tournaments recently, like Star City Games is running qualifiers for Keldheim Championship, which I think is like a pro tour essentially. So we've got some new historic stuff going on, and also a little bit about when paper Magic's going to come back. We keep hearing semi-good news about the pandemic with vaccines maybe not being in the super distant future. People are starting to wonder are we going to have GP Vegas in 2021? Are we going to have Magic Fest, Paper Pro Tour? So we wanted to discuss that a little bit too before answering fish mail. So that's kind of the overview for today. But before we get into all that, a reminder that our podcast today is sponsored by Spikes Academy, and if you want to learn the strategies and techniques of the best Magic the Gathering players in the world, you can visit spikesacademy.com to learn from championship winners how to play Magic at a competitive level. Spikes Academy also offers one-on-one coaching sessions where you can work with a world-class player on deck building, sideboarding, or whatever else you want to work on, so you can level up your Magic the Gathering game by visiting spikesacademy.com, and you can even use the code GOLDFISH at checkout to get 10% off any of their courses. So thank you so much to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. And let's talk some Magic. Let's start with probably the biggest news, which I think is Commander Legends. So Richard, the set is out on Magic Online. We've been drafting it a little bit. What do you think of this format?
All right, I'm gonna have to put a disclaimer out there. I love Commander Legends. I've been brewing actual constructed Commander decks for the past week. Cards are great. The format itself, oh my god, it's the most miserable thing I've ever seen. Holy smokes. Okay, so disclaimer. I played one league, one game. 4 hours later, I dropped, and that was it. Okay, the draft takes forever because you are drafting 2 cards at once. They give you ample time. However, it's really hard to build the deck you want because you're not trying to build good decks, right? You're trying to build a deck you're going for, I want to play elves or something. So you're really kind of just hard forcing. And then because you draft 2 cards a pack, you get hard cut off from the other side. So normally, because you only pick the best card, if someone else is drafting blue, you're drafting blue, you get the second best blue card in the pack, right? Now you are totally cut off. So, on the first pack, I got all my elves. Second pack, I got literally nothing in the colors I wanted, literally nothing for the first 8 picks or whatever. Came back, okay, built the deck. I'm okay, it's a reasonable looking deck. I don't know. There was no curve to it. There are no 2-drops in the format. It's super hard to build a real curve, barely functioning ramp. I'm playing elves and I barely have ramp. Hop into my game. We're deadlocked for 2.5 hours as we just play dirty dudes. No one can break the board stall. Whoever draws their bomb, better hope that bomb ends the game and the other players can't answer it. But we don't have such things. We don't have wraths. We don't have game-winning combos. It's pretty hard to put together. So you're just deadlocked. And it really reminded me of Pauper Commander, where when we're playing at the super low rarities, you don't have access to the same card draw and wraths and answers that you would when you play normal Commander. And you just get deadlocked and the board is everyone has 20 creatures and no one can attack. And then you're just sitting there And then it's taking an excruciatingly long time because people aren't familiar with playing Commander online either. So they're taking like forever to go through their phases. And it was just a miserable time. And eventually, someone managed to play a one-sided board wipe in my game, like 2.5 hours in. It was like the Storm one. So he managed to actually get through and win. I voted for someone because I was salty. And then that was it. And then I dropped out of my league and I've never played this format again. And my serious question to you guys is, do you think they play tested this at all? Because I watched your streams. You guys weren't having much of a better time either.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, your experience almost exactly matches my experience. We did a Commander Legends draft on stream last Thursday, and going into it, I was, like, talking to chat, and I was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, we can probably, like, just, like, go through the whole draft, or we can, like, do a round and then drop and do another draft so we get in more of the actual, like, drafting experience, and we were, like, debating that, and then once we actually, like, drafted and started playing, it took us, like, 4 hours to draft and play a single round. That single round, Tomer was in the same pod as me. That ended with Tomer timed out. One of the other players in the pod had like 2 minutes on the clock when Moto eventually crashed and the game ended in a Moto victory after 3 hours of playing this game, which was exactly like yours. Like, everyone had big boards, but no one could do anything with their stuff. Like, everyone was just playing these like random creatures and no one could break through and actually kill the opponent. Or even, I think when Tomer timed out, I think we were all pretty close to 30 life still. Like, Monarchy was involved, so there was like a little bit of like people getting in with a 1/1 spirit or something to try to steal the Monarchy or whatever, like stuff like that. But everyone was still at a super high life total. And I think our game would have ended with maybe everyone timing out, or at least multiple players timing out if Moto hadn't come in and, I guess, saved us sort of by crashing. So yeah, it was not what I was expecting. I think the Pauper Commander comparison is a really good one. You just don't have ways to finish off the game for the most part, unless you get really lucky and open like Kamal maybe. I assume Kamal's like a bomb as a repeatable overrun. Something like that is going to let you close out the game. Or maybe like there are a few wraths at higher rarity that you can get. So there are a few cards, but they're mostly at higher rarity, and you're playing limited, so you mostly have, you know, commons and uncommons, and no one could just really break through. So I think I'm really in the same place as you are, Richard, where I like the cards in the set, and I'm really hyped about the actual Commander decks I've been building with the cards from the set, but the actual limited format, I don't know if I would put myself through that again. As far as if they play tested it, I guess my question would be, do you think this is what they wanted it to be? Like, do you think the goal was, you know, Commander's a long format, you play long games? Were they trying to make a limited format where all of your matches are going to go like 3 hours or something? Unless that was their goal, I would imagine that they didn't play test it.
It's like you're playing limited with your friend and you're like, no one can attack for the first 15 turns, okay? Okay. And then by the time the 15th turn comes around, you're like, we have like 80 creatures each. We can't attack. If I attack you, you know, like you just get the swing back and die. And I just don't know. I was not satisfied building my deck. I can't see how the draft would go better, because drafting, like when you play Commander, you want to express yourself. You want to do something, right? You can't just like draft the open colors and the good cards. Like if you do, then you're playing a spike in a spiky manner, and then you're going into the 4-player game with the spike mindset, and it's just not cool. And then also like the matching is not correct, right? Like you want to match decks based on power level, right? Like when you have a play group, everyone plays decks at the same power level. You don't want one guy with like a tier 1 deck and then everyone else with like a tier 5 deck, right? It's just not a good time. But there's no such balancing in limited, right? You just run in, and then the person with a really strong deck gets ahead, everyone gangs up on them, beats them down, they're not having fun, no one else is having fun, then you're all deadlocked, right? And I don't know, it wasn't fun in any way, and I don't see how playing more would make it more fun, right? Like it's not like when we play like 1-on-1 limited where maybe your deck sucked, but you see your opponents, you're like, wow, that deck was really good. If I drafted that common or that uncommon that I thought was bad but is actually good, my next draft will be so much better. Like I didn't see any of that, right? I saw my 3 opponents having a miserable time. When I watch streams, I saw 4 people having a miserable time, and I'm like, I just don't see where the fun part of this is, right? So I'm curious if they actually play tested this format. Like, to me, this is purely a booster cracking set, right? Like, go buy the boxes, crack the boosters, build your constructed decks. They'll be really good. The set is really good, but like, don't bother playing limited. Like, just really like watch paint dry on a wall or something, right? Like, it's just so miserable, Seth. I dropped after 1 game. I had like 3 more games I could play, but I'm like, I am not sitting here for another 9 hours doing nothing, right? Like, oh,
this sounds excruciatingly painful to play.
It was excruciating, like the worst Magic experience I've ever had, I think.
It crossed my mind to try to do like a rough drafts or some sort of YouTube video, but after realizing it would be literally like a 10-hour YouTube video to complete, maybe even longer, to complete 1 draft, I was like, maybe that's not actually in the cards for this one. So, okay, so here's my thoughts on the draft. One is, I thought that drafting was kind of fun. I think the clock on Magic Online's a little bit too long. Like, I think your first pick, you start with 4.5 or 5 minutes or something, which even though you're picking 2 cards, that's a long time. Like a normal draft, you start with 1 minute and 30 seconds for your first pick. So it's like 3 times as long to make your pick. And you always have someone that's going to like use up the whole clock and kind of slow down the draft. So I think they could lower the clock on the draft. I think the format would probably be much more fun if you started at 30 life rather than 40 life. I think 40 life is it's a lot for random commons to get to. So I think some tweaks could maybe improve it. One thing I wanted to ask you though, like, do you think it'd be better in paper? Do you think part of the reason it wasn't as much fun is because you're kind of playing against 3 randoms for the most part, not really bantering or talking, maybe a little bit in the Moto chat, but for the most part, you're just like playing a 3-hour Commander game against 3 people you don't know, with digital cardboard. Do you think it would be more enjoyable if it was you and 80 of your friends that got together and, did a draft and broke up into pods and did it? Do you think that would make it more enjoyable, or do you think it would still be that miserable experience?
So I thought about that. We are very lucky that we get to play Commander Clash, 4 friends playing every week. Super enjoyable, right? Like, way more enjoyable than playing with randoms. But then I just think about the times we play like Pauper Commander or something, or like super low powered Commander. We're not having a good time, right? I mean, it's better than playing with strangers, but I'd rather literally do anything else. Like, I would do any other Magic. I would like sort my bulk before I play another game of Commander Legends draft, right? Like, it's just so miserable. Like, I just don't get it. And like, I don't know. I just don't get it. Like, if I drafted the perfect deck, I would just steamroll my opponents anyway, and then it wouldn't be fun, right? So like, there's just like no win. It's a lose-lose situation. The best is just rare draft all the rares you need for your actual constructed decks, and then drop, right? That is the experience I recommend, right? And then go sort your bulk.
I actually have done that on Magic Online. I haven't played a second draft, but I did fire up a couple just to rare draft so I could get like opposition agent, and I actually got back way more ticks than I put in just rare drafting viciously and then dropping afterwards. But yeah, I don't know, and it's weird because this set was pitched as a draft set. Like, that was the gimmick of this set is, it's Commander that you can draft. So I think I would be a little more maybe forgiving if that wasn't the whole idea of this set. It feels like if you're going to like sell a set based on, hey, it's Commander that you draft, the draft's got to be at least like kind of playable for that whole gimmick to work. So I feel like, I don't know, in that sense, I gotta feel like Commander Legends is a little bit of a failure, which is especially weird because Wizards has really kind of nailed it with draft recently. Like, in general, the last couple of years, even though constructed, people have been, pretty down on, and it's been up and down based on bannings and all that stuff, some broken cards. In general, like, most limited formats for the past couple years have been very highly rated by the community at large, by pro players. So it's really weird to me that this hyped Commander draft set I would say, be just like straight up a flop as far as actually drafting it. Like, I still think it's a great set to, put cards into Commander. And I feel like they did a really good job in that aspect, and a sweet set to like open. But as far as actually drafting it, it's so strange to me that it's as bad as it is, in all honesty.
I hope we're just being like salty old guys, and I hope like new players really enjoy it, or like I hope there's some demographic that just really enjoys drafting Commander Legends, and I hope like we're the minority and like we're too old and haggard for this or something, right? Because it would be a shame, right? Like I hope someone enjoys it. Maybe new players love this, right? I don't know.
Doesn't this like not really capture like you all had mentioned it, right? Like it feels like it doesn't capture why you like Commander, right? When you play limited.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't capture our, the actual fun of Commander. It doesn't even capture like any fun of limited itself, I don't think. So I'm not sure what it does, right? So, but yeah, it's like drafting is inherently a spiky thing. And it's weird that they brought it together, and I thought they would come up with something innovative, but I think it's a flop. I think they got to go back to the drawing board and figure out another way to get the draft experience with Commander, right? Like maybe, I don't know what it is. I have no idea, but not what it is currently.
I will say the one thing that I do kind of like about it is if you do want to test out the format, you are going to get a lot of Magic for your entry fee on Magic Online. Like, I think if you want to do Phantom and not keep the cards, that's like $10. And even non-Phantom where you keep the cards is $20 or the equivalent in ticks or play points. But you can like join a draft on Sunday night. That's going to take you an hour and a half to just like draft your deck. Then for the rest of the week, like every other day, you can play 1 3-hour game of Commander, and you can kind of get, a lot of actual gameplay out of your entry fee. So I do think that that's like, maybe that's how you're supposed to play it. I'm used to like a Magic Arena where you fire up a draft and you rush through it and you do it in like an hour and then you fire up another draft. And that's how most draft formats are. But the pace of this is just so glacially slow that I don't think you can actually like play through a draft in one sitting. I'm not sure it's like even possible to do. So I think maybe that's how you're supposed to do it. But still, even from that perspective, I don't know if I would join another one, honestly. It's just, it's so slow and grindy. The draft itself is kind of questionable. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't want to be like overly negative because I actually really like the set, and many of the things that I feared about the set, like partners being busted or a ton of broken cards that invalidate old cards, those things didn't happen. I feel like as far as being a, like modern horizons for Commander, I feel like this set actually like crushed it and they did an amazing job. But as far as being like a good draft format, not so much.
Yeah, I'm going to nix your idea for value gameplay. Like for 10 or 20 bucks, you can build like a really good Commander deck on Magic Online. Like we played seasons of Commander Clash where our budget was 20 ticks. So you can spend 10 or 20 bucks, build a really good deck, and play infinitely with the Commander leagues on Magic Online. So for like, money to time, like I would still just rather play Constructed. Maybe just do one draft, just so that you get an idea of what it is. Maybe you'll really enjoy it. But, if you're trying to just, bang for a buck, like just build a 10 ticks Commander deck. It's like so cheap on Magic Online.
Yeah, like you can even build a powerful 5 ticks like, like deck or whatever. So yeah, like I
just look at Tomer rolling us every week with his budget decks.
Yep.
All right, let's move on from Commander Legends to another recently released set. That is Kaladesh Remastered. So Kaladesh Remastered, Krim, I know you've been playing some Kaladesh Remastered stuff.
Yeah.
The big deal with Kaladesh Remastered is obviously new cards in Historic on Magic Arena. What have you thought about new Kaladesh Remastered stuff in Historic? What have you been liking? What have you been seeing? Has it been a good set for the format, et cetera, et cetera?
I think, okay, this is gonna, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I feel like, yeah, it's definitely added some cards to the format. Like, like it's been cool seeing cards return to like, like get the limelight. And that is like, cards like Torrential Gearhulk, right? Like, I at first kind of felt like that card was just kind of meh, like it wasn't what it once was, and I still think that holds true. But it is better than I gave it credit for. However, cards like Aetherworks Marvel just are not good. Like I know this sounds weird to say, but like just because like it was banned at a standard, right? But like why do all of that? Like why play Marvel? Why go through the extra steps? right? Like there's so many things that can just like, you want to play an Ulamog, you can probably just play Ulamog without even having to like try to like hope to spin into it. A lot easier than actually trying to spin into it. People have been saying like Goblins is pretty much Marvel, but like better, right? You're doing what Marvel does, which is kind of true, right? Your Marvel is Muxus, so you don't need to worry about anything else. And like, yeah, like overall, I feel like the set kind of got overshadowed actually for the most part by like all the stuff that's already been out, like Nissa who shakes the world, right? Like, like Uros and things like that. So I'm not even sure like how much like Kaladesh has actually done. We've gotten Fatal Push, which has been seeing some like splits between that and like, Bloodchief's Thirst. So, like there aren't fetch lands in this format as many. There's Fabled Passage and Evolving Wilds, right? So I don't know. I just haven't seen as much Kaladesh as I thought there would be. And I mean, sure, if like Felidar Sovereign was in the, like got reprinted, maybe even the, the artifact that gives everything improvise, right? Like even cards like Battle at the Bridge might have even gotten played. So, but like the cards that I think made Kaladesh like have like a bunch of heavy hitters, like aren't here. The Gear Hulks aren't what they once were, except for the blue one. And, yeah, like that's kind of just been my overall experience. Like just everything from 2019 really dunks on Kaladesh.
I think what you mentioned about Fatal Push is interesting because that's kind of been my experience too. When it first came out, I was like, "Oh, like I'm gonna swap all Fatal Pushes in for Bloodchief's Thirst." And then as I actually like played games, I was like slowly removing Fatal Pushes for Bloodchief's Thirst because it's not without the fetch lands. And in this format, I know Fatal Push is great in Pioneer without fetch lands, but the curves are like a little bit higher in general. I think in Historic than they are in Pioneer or in Modern. So it actually doesn't kill that much. And my favorite part has been I can't even count the number of opponents that just fire off Fatal Push on a 3 or 4 drop with no revolt, and it makes me laugh every single time. People because you can target any creature with it, even if it's not going to kill it. So many people try to like kill your 4 drop, and it just doesn't happen. I will say though, even though we haven't seen the massive impact from Kaladesh Remastered, I do feel like we have seen some impact around the edges. Like, it hasn't overthrown the Historic format. The decks that were good before are still good for the most part. It's still Goblins, it's still Sultai, it's still some control decks, like random 4-color mid-range piles. Like, all those decks are still arguably the best decks, Rakdos Sacrifice, but we have seen, like, Aura's decks have gotten a big boost of power from Saram, I think. You could argue those are, like, much better than they were before. Maybe they were tier 2 before. Now maybe, arguably, they're even tier 1. We have seen some people have success. There was a big tournament over the weekend, and someone top 8'd with God Pharaoh's Gift in a Azorius Gift stack where you can refurbish the God Pharaoh's Gift. We've seen a little bit of, like, Mardu vehicles with Gideons and, like, Heart of Kirin. So I feel like we've seen some impact around the edges, but I do think it was much less than I was expecting.
Right.
Like, energy for the most part has not developed into a top tier archetype. And I think when Kaladesh Remastered first released, like the first day or two, Marvel was looking really good, and a lot of people were playing it, but the metagame, I think, has mostly adjusted to it, and now Marvel doesn't even really seem to be a serious deck in the format at all, and we're kind of back to where we were pre-Kaladesh Remastered, with just like a few second tier decks getting powered up a little bit, I think is how I see the impact of the set for the most part.
Yeah, like I think for like the best cards to come from this so far are like Scrap Heap Scrounger. I think that's a big one. That's probably the best thing to come from Kaladesh, I think. New Chandra has been like pretty cool. Like, it helps boost up the Rakdos Sacrifice decks. But like, yeah, like everything from before is like still good, right? And it's all archetypes that have existed courtesy of 2019 forward, like sacrifice stuff, and then like I saw the gifts deck, right? Like the Azorius one, because you get like refurbish is kind of cool, but I feel like that's just kind of like a one-off thing. I mean, I don't know how good that like actually is. Refurbish is nice. That's about it. other than that, like we've seen Grafdigger's Cage kind of just once again hold the meta together. Grafdigger's Cage now I think is actually main deckable. And even more so now when while everyone's currently trying to jam, Gear Hulk, like torrential Gear Hulks, and like even Aetherworks Marvels and things like that. It doesn't work against Gift though. People seem to bring that in against me when I play Gift.
Yes, they also love, people love to bring it in against embalmed creatures too, like Champion of Wits and stuff. People see that and like bring it in and like, no, that's not actually going to do what you want. And I actually think that's one of the reasons that gifts might be good right now. I think that because of goblins and like Aetherworks Marvel and Sacrifice decks and co-elected company, because of all the decks where you really want Grafdigger's Cage to be your like sideboard hate card for graveyard decks rather than like Rest in Peace or Leyline of the Void, and because Gifts just doesn't care about it, I feel like that might be why the Gifts deck is actually like kind of decent. It's a graveyard deck that can be really powerful, but also just gets around the main graveyard hate that everyone's playing right now. So I don't know if it'll actually have long-term success, because I do feel like if it ever became good, it's pretty easy to beat by playing like Rest in Pieces and stuff, but it might be good right now while everyone's on Grafdigger's Cage to like fight against goblins and whatnot.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's not like people are gonna, like, the Grafdigger's Cage is going away anytime soon. As long as Goblins exists and like all the things that are entry, like the Neo Storm or Neo Form combo deck, you know what I mean? Like, as long as those exist, people are gonna just have to play Grafdigger's Cage. So, like,
I mean, if you look at the big tournament we had yesterday, Sultai Midrange, number 1, that's an Uro deck. Mono Red Goblins, number 2 most played deck. That's like the most important deck to have Grafdigger's Cage for. Jund and Rakdos Sacrifice, those are number 3 and 4 on the list.
Yeah.
All of those decks get like kind of wrecked by, or at least hurt quite a bit by, a Grafdigger's Cage. So I was pretty skeptical of your like play main deck Grafdigger's Cage plan.
Yeah.
But the more I look at the meta, I think I might be coming around a little bit to that idea. Like, you've been having some success with that, right?
Yeah. I've just been jamming it in the main deck of like anything that I can, pretty much. What is it? Like a burn deck, throw main deck, a Grafdigger's Cage. Just because like you need it, right? Like, you absolutely need it right now. I mean, why not, right? Especially like, that's why so kind of this is why I've been bummed that there's been no Battle at the Bridge, which still doesn't make sense to me, because I've been having so much fun with artifact decks. And we've been seeing it too, like, like just from the tournament over the weekend, there's been like the colorless, I don't know, control decks or whatever. And I've been trying to make Herald of Anguish work, but whatever it is, it's a cheap artifact. And on top of that, it shuts down a good amount of the top decks. And it's great when you're improvising in a Herald of Anguish, or maybe like I've been trying to make that work along with, the Antiquities War and stuff like that. Antiquities War, though, does feel bad because you can get disallowed on that last that can happen.
Oh man, that archetype is really missing Battle at the Bridge. Like,
Yeah.
I think the colorless control decks too, any of those like artifacty ramp decks that people are playing, I feel like Battle at the Bridge is maybe like the missing piece of the puzzle for those decks. I'm really not sure. I don't understand why they didn't reprint that one either. It doesn't feel like it breaks anything, and it feels like it's good enough that you would want it to be available for formats like Pioneer in the future, unless they know it's coming in like a master set or something in the near future. Then I guess it makes a little bit of sense, but that is one of the weird big omissions from the set, I would say. Like, I can understand why you wouldn't put Walking List in.
Yeah.
That just like obviously would break the format and need to be banned, I think. But Battle at the Bridge, it's not going to break anything, but it would be playable.
Yeah.
I think the other concern, I don't even know if this is a concern, but I think as we keep moving forward with these reprint sets, with these master sets, it does make sense that they're going to make less and less of an impact, because the historic format's getting bigger and bigger. And kind of like we see with Modern or Legacy, it's a lot harder for a new set to make an impact in a format where you have 10 years, 25 years worth of sets. So I feel like maybe we gotta temper our expectations a little bit for future remastered sets, just because maybe Historic's getting to the point where the good decks are so good that rather than getting brand new archetypes, you're just going to get like some pieces around the edges. Like, if Energy, which was like so busted in Standard not that long ago, is not really enough to be even arguably a playable deck. I guess maybe it'll end up like tier 3 or something, but it's not a real threat in the format. Like, if that's not good enough to make a new deck in Historic right now, it's hard for me to imagine whatever, Shadows over Innistrad Remastered, or whatever else we move back to, Battle for Zendikar Remastered, that those sets that are even less powerful than Kaladesh are going to actually, like, change the format when they're released.
Do you think cards, like, I mean, I think, like, the Shadows block, though, still has some pretty good ones, right? Like Emrakul. So, like,
Emrakul, yeah. You'll get some big pieces like that. You get Tireless Tracker is good for some decks, for sure.
Yeah, so that, I think, you know what, that it makes sense. Like you had mentioned, those sets that are even less powerful than Kaladesh will definitely not make it, like, as big of an impact. That's why it makes sense that they're going to totally try to do, like, probably like a Pioneer Masters or something like that, right? Like, added to the format.
And I guess the other thing they could do is what they did with Amonkhet Remastered too, where it's like, hey, here's our remastered set, but also, like, here's 20 broken, like, here's a historic anthology stapled to it, which is how we got, like, Thoughtseize and Pact of Negation and some other really playable cards that they just kind of, like, threw into Amonkhet Remastered. So maybe they should have done that with Kaladesh. I know they said they thought the set was, like, good enough and impactful enough without doing that they didn't need to, but maybe in hindsight, maybe they should have thrown in, 20 random cards just to, like, up the power level.
Ensnaring Bridge. Yep. That one. Sorry. Bitter Blossom. Sorry. And please do not say Dreadhorde Invasion, because that is not Bitter Blossom.
I mean, it's basically Bitter Blossom.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. We got one other topic we want to hit on today, which is paper magic. So something that's been coming up a lot recently is we kind of get some, like, semi-good news about maybe, like, vaccines and eventually the pandemic maybe ending and being able to do stuff again. Do you think paper magic is going to be making a return in the semi-near future? And by semi-near future, I think people are talking about, later next spring, next summer, theoretically after there's some sort of, like, vaccine going on. I want your guys' predictions. Are we going to have big paper events at all in 2021? I think the easiest way to ask this question is there going to be GP or Magic Fest Vegas in 2021? Because I think if there's one event that they would do, that would be the one. Will there be Magic Fest Vegas in 2021?
I don't even think there'll be events, like, at all for like another, like, at least safely for, like, another 2 to, like, 3 years. If I'm
whoa.
I know.
You're scaring me, Krim.
Well, you got to think about it. Like, we are not killing it in that game, right? Like, right now we're like, seriously just, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that we've got this under control yet, and it's going to be a while until we do. Like, even once the vaccine comes out, there's getting it to the people, and then on top of that, like, is it actually going to work? How, like, you know what I mean? Like, can you imagine being in close quarters with, like, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 people, right? Like, I would love for there to be paper magic. I would love for there to be events just in general. Like, there's the hypothetical list of concerts next year. Like, I still hope that I can actually go watch My Chemical Romance's reunion. I hope that I can go see, like, go play, like, Magic with people, all this other stuff. But, like, I don't think we're going to return to that for at least I think 2 years. Like, maybe early 2022.
So we're not scientists. Nobody knows.
Yeah.
But, like, spring seems super aggressive. I don't think that's on the cards. I think there's a lot more pressing things people want to do in real life rather than play Magic, like grocery shop like a sane person, or go to the mall, or eat at a restaurant, or watch a movie. Given how, like, the movie industry is going and things like that, I don't think anyone is prepared for mass gatherings anytime soon. But having said that, who knows? Krim was this 2 to 3 year thing. I was watching a movie trailer YouTube channel yesterday because, I haven't been to the movies in, like, literally a year now. So all the trailers are fresh. So, there's, like, Wonder Woman and Monster Hunter. And then there pops up a trailer for a movie, and they're talking about COVID-23. And it's a movie about COVID. I'm like, why would you make this movie, guys? Like, come on. Like, come on. Like, why? Like, who's going to watch this? Why would you do this? So I hope it's not 2-3 years. I hope, we get a vaccine. I hope it works. And I hope, everything's returned to normal. I think spring and summer is pretty aggressive. Even if we had a vaccine today, we'll be back to normal. And also remember, like an event like Vegas is international, right? When you go to Vegas, it's just not people around you. It's people from other countries, right? Is every other country up to snuff? The whole world combined has to have this situation solved before we have these like big international events. So I just think it's going to take a while.
Yeah.
So
all right.
spell table it up.
let me ask the question in a slightly different way. So obviously, as Richard said, we're not scientists. We don't know when the pandemic's going to end or if the vaccines will work or how quickly that'll happen. Like, that's not really our area. But let's say there's some best case scenario where there's a vaccine and it works really well and it comes out in the spring and most people get it by the summer or whatever. Let's assume the best case scenario. Do you think Wizards, assuming that we're in this best case scenario world where it's safe to go back out in the world again and do things, do you think that bringing back big events like GP Vegas is going to be a top priority for Wizards? Or do you think we're going to see concerts and movie theaters and restaurants and malls and all that stuff going on and Magic kind of like lagging behind a little bit, or maybe not bringing events back at all because Magic Arena is a convenient way to run tournaments? So in the best case scenario, do you think that's going to be a priority for Wizards to bring back those events? Or because I'm a little nervous because we kind of saw like the end of coverage, we saw CFB events like stop being the promoter of these events. Like, I don't know. Is there any worry that they're just never going to come back, even once it's safe, in either of your minds?
I think it's still like, let's say that the best case scenario happens. They're still going to have to be very cautious, right? Like, I mean, like the best case scenario, this all works out. We still should be very, very careful about how we go forward with big gatherings. So even with that and like all the planning, I still don't like the best case scenario is early 2022, I think, for me. That's how I see it. And maybe I'm really being like, I guess pessimistic about this outlook, but like, I mean, yeah, I think at the best case scenario, 2022 or like
but do you think Wizards will bring back big events once it's safe to do so?
I think so.
Do you think
yeah.
that's in the cards that we'll go back to it? Okay.
I think that they will bring back Vegas. I think maybe there'll be less like Magic Fests, you know what I mean? Like what do we have like last year? Like how many? Like I know we had a non-zero amount, but I think it might be like half the amount of what we had last year.
So bring back some,
Yeah.
but maybe not as many as when we were getting one every weekend almost, like 45 a year or whatever we were getting at one point.
Yeah. Like I think that, I mean, and maybe they just become more Commander events than anything else.
Yeah,
I think competitive Magic is going to shift to online. And
Yeah.
by competitive Magic, I mean what Wizards promotes as esports, which is Arena and Standard, right? And Historic sometimes. I don't think we're going to go back where we had like a Grand Prix every weekend. And if you were a pro, you would fly like around the world. Like, I don't know that these events were that profitable. I'm not sure. Like, it seemed like a big hassle. So maybe going forward, we have like a Mythic Invitational or something, maybe one big event a year like Worlds. But I don't know that we're going to have that constant stream of events. Things like the SCG Tour, maybe they'll come back because it's pretty localized. It's not that hard to throw together. But yeah, I don't think we're going to have the same level because I just think that with the shift to Arena, like Wizards is just focused on online anyway. Like this was happening before the pandemic where they kept restructuring organized play and Grand Prix and Magic Fest and whatnot to promote Arena more. I feel that'll just continue to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, is I kind of feel like Wizards wanted to shift competitive play more towards digital anyway, or maybe even eventually exclusively towards digital play.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic, like, obviously sped up the timetable a little bit compared to what they were going for. We were going to have like the mixture of paper and digital, but we kind of went all digital by necessity because of the pandemic. I think that my guess would be big events will come back, but I would not be at all surprised if they are mostly or even exclusively like Command Fest. Like I think it might be that the era of Magic Fest and GPs and sadly even like regular paper pro tours or whatever they happen to be calling them whenever the tournaments actually return, like I'm not sure that we ever get that back again. And it might be that paper events are, big Commander get-togethers where sure you can play side events for Constructed, but I would actually be kind of surprised if we saw a return of paper competitive play. I feel like maybe there's a little bit for older formats, but I'm not even sure. Like it could be that we go the way of like Eternal Weekends. Maybe you have Modern Weekend where all the modern players, get together once a year and they have their big paper tournament, and that's all you get for the year. But I would not be surprised if it was more casually focused once it returns than competitively focused in paper.
Maybe this is just me. Like, I mean, I love GPs. I love all that stuff, right? But I always loved it because it felt like a con. Now they actually can really move. If like, I think when they return to like the paper world and whatnot, I think it'll definitely feel more like a con, right? So yeah, that means a shift from like more competitive stuff and just, like Command Fest stuff. Like, hey, artists are here, like, and like Commander stuff, and come look at cool old cards, and like, like less of a focus on the competitive side of things.
Yeah, I'd actually like to see that. I'd like to see, actually, I don't know if I'd like to see that. So on one hand, Magic was cool in the sense that there was a big tournament happening like in multiple places across the world, sometimes not geographically balanced, but that's what the intent was. So if you lived in the United States, there was a couple times a year that there'd be an event nearby you could go to, or if you lived in Europe, there was a couple times, things like that. However, that meant each Grand Prix was like pretty small, right? It's like a 1 or 2 day event. You had a handful of artists, a handful of cosplayers or something, maybe one-off event here or there, and you just went there to play Magic, as opposed to something like Comic-Con, where it's like a week long or, like just crazy gathering, and it's once a year. So they put like all the money into it, all the resources, and it's like a crazy time. Like, I wonder if it's better to do that. So you just have like one giant Magic Fest every year. The downside is you have to travel, right? And if you have to travel, that just like cuts off like a large portion of the population. So I don't know, but like it would just be such a big spectacle, right? Then you can do things like, every year during this thing, we can do the beta draft because there's only one event each year. We can actually find the product for it. You can have like seminars or whatever, or like big companies can come sponsor. So maybe they do that. Maybe they just go for like the one giant event, Comic-Con, and they can sell all the secret layers they want there and call it a day.
I would be surprised if we don't have something in Vegas again once we can. Like, and maybe that's what you're talking about, where rather than every weekend doing small events, maybe you do, I don't know, like Vegas for North America. Maybe you do like a European version at some point during the year, or like an APAC version at some point during the year. But maybe you do like, a small number of big week-long or almost week-long cons rather than a bunch of small tournaments. I think the other consideration is if there isn't paper competitive play at the like GP level, what does that mean for like local game stores? Because the way the system worked before is like, you could qualify at your LGS through like PTQs to go to the bigger thing and then to the bigger thing. Do LGSs need a return of like a premier paper circuit to be able to have people come in and play at their, shop? Like, is that a piece of the puzzle that is important to Magic, or are we to the point where like it's just all digital and LGSs will, make do with selling booster boxes or commander decks or whatever?
I think that's the way, because let's be honest here. How many people like, I'm going to go play Magic Fest, whatever place. I'm going to go into a LGS and playtest. I don't think that's like something I've ever done back when I was like spiky, right? So like in a majority of the people that I would play test with, like we would just meet up somewhere, right? At like one of each other's houses or something like that, and then just play test there or go play test online.
Would you go do like PTQs and stuff though?
Yeah, PTQs.
Okay.
Like I did that. I did PPTQs and stuff like that. And you would just test online or just test with friends specifically in a small area, just like, I don't know, at each other's houses or something like that. So I don't think like that's going to help an LGS anyways. I think what'll help the LGSs is mostly just like the people, once again, for weekday events. Yeah, maybe I want to go out and play Commander, a pickup game. That will more likely help an LGS.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Well, it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens, because sooner or later, whether it's, the end of next year, whether it's 2022, whether it's like Richard's movie preview 2023.
No,
Yeah.
movie doesn't exist. Don't talk about it ever again. I'm
Sooner
really
or later.
annoyed that someone okayed this, and like, in what bad, like, at least wait till it's over, right? Like, in 10 years, you can come make a movie about the pandemic, right? But like, come on, guys.
Some people want to watch, like, like how people, like, when it started happening, people wanted to watch Contagion, right? Like, immediately. So some people
That's different, though. That's an old movie, and you're like, look how spot on they were, or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? This is like the current situation. Come on.
some people want to watch it right away, like they're like, I'm living in it. So it's extremely relatable, right? So...
well, sooner or later stuff will return, and it'll be interesting to see what Wizards does with that. It'll be very interesting to see what happens. So hopefully there'll be some sort of Vapor Magic, and I think there will be, but what exactly that looks like, I guess, is kind of anyone's guess at this point.
Yeah, I think
Super shiny holograms, Seth. With our one-off collector cards with Maro's toenails in it.
we got that. At least we got Maro's toenails. That's what we've been asking for. I do want I guess the final touches on that. I for me at least, I think legitimately whatever happens, and whenever it does happen, when we go back to the world of paper, it's going to be very different. But that's going to be the same for like everything. Movies, concerts, just gatherings like conventions, Comic-Cons, stuff like that. These are all going to be very different. That's what I think.
Richard, yeah, I think you're right. It's really hard to think through. Actually, I don't know. Like, we don't want to get too pandemic-y here, but like a lot of people are just living normal life anyway as it is against all the medical judgment. So some percentage of the population is going to do things the way they did before. So, but we're getting a little far out of the Magic realm here. So Richard, why don't you fish mail us? I think we've gotten to the fish mail time of the cast.
All right. If you have questions, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we get to your questions on air. First question via email from Scott. Is it cheating to use an overlay on Arena like MTG Assistant? It gives you your deck list and chance of drawing a particular card.
So it depends. If you're talking about like just like playing at home on the ladder, whatever, sure, that's fine. I don't see that as cheating at all, right? But like example, the H word, I'm about to drop it, Hearthstone. In tournaments, you are not allowed to use like a deck master. You were not allowed to use like those kind of cards or that kind of application. So I would probably say that would ring the same here, right? Like actually perfect time. I mean, if Magic goes digital, right, for competitive stuff, I think that kind of like application is fine at home and when you're just playing on the ladder. But I think at a tournament, maybe I'm just used to this from like competitive Hearthstone, but like at a tournament, I'd probably say no. You shouldn't use that.
Have you read the terms?
Current rules?
Yeah. Have you read the tournament rules for any of the online tournaments you've been in? Have they explicitly mentioned it?
Oh, I mean, like for specifically like the online tournaments, there has not been anything stating against it. At least not for Magic.
Interesting.
So at least not any of the ones that I've been in. But like all the other ones, like for like the Hearthstone tournaments I've been in, that they've strictly said no, you can't use that.
I wonder if they'll eventually have to add something to the tournament rules if we keep doing digital, or at least address it. My kind of thinking is it's all information that you could calculate on your own if you wanted to. So I definitely don't think it's cheating, definitely for playing on the ladder or anything, because if you wanted to, like, you could use a pen and paper and do all of it yourself. They just kind of make it a little bit easier for you. So I don't think it's giving you any new information. It's not like it's showing you your opponent's hand or something that would obviously be cheating. As far as tournaments, I don't know. I guess if it's not something that's forbidden, it's technically okay at this point, but maybe we should address that.
I feel like, like it's not addressed currently, but like Hearthstone tournaments had that, right? So like I think that it kind of like, I guess I think it makes sense why you don't like. I mean, when you go to a tournament like that, I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, I don't like it. I don't like it at a tournament.
I think it would make sense to have a rule against it, but if there's not a rule against it, from a complete like pure spike perspective,
yeah, I
think there's like an argument that if it gives you an advantage and it's not against the rules and it's not cheating, then you should do it. But then that's an issue that the tournament organizers and wizards should probably address and make a rule against, would be my take on it.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Pal plays. I could not read this name without seeing PayPal in it. Pal plays. Paladin. That's for a paladin, by the way. Not really a question, but feedback. I think I should come up with a ban list that the rules committee should be coming up with. Forget the $100 restriction and balance the format yourself. The price restriction is more annoyance than a legit budget format. So this is, I think, in regards to Commander Clash.
Sounds like it is.
So the $100 restriction, and we just balance the format ourselves. So the only reason for that $100 restriction is to make the decks accessible to all the viewers. So we rely on theoretically balancing the power level ourselves. We just don't want like for you to pull up a deck and it's chock full of dual lands and then the deck price is like $5,000. And then you look at this and you're like, how do I build this deck? So we keep that restriction to make the decks like accessible for everyone. But we try to balance the decks ourselves. Like there are plenty of cards that are like 1 cent that are like totally breaking. And then there are a lot of cards that are like hundreds of dollars that like totally suck, right? So we try to do the balancing ourselves. Although the thing we wrote down is $100 restriction, and we break it all the time because of that.
And I think
not anymore.
I think
I don't.
Yeah, that's only because Mana Drain got reprinted.
It's $50.
It's $50. You got the free pass thanks to Commander Legends. The other problem with just like making our own ban list completely is Magic Online's really not good with custom games. That's something people have asked about in a bunch of different ways before, like, oh, play like silver bordered cards or custom commanders. And that's just like, you can't do it on Magic Online. So if we wanted to take cards off of the official ban list in our like balancing, I don't think we'd actually have the ability to do that. So I think it would be very hard to do with Magic Online. It would be much easier in paper, but that's just not really possible at the moment. So,
all right. Benjam421. Hey crew, I started making art using bulk Magic cards. I typically feel fine cutting up a common from a recent set, but older cards can feel weird. What do you think about destroying cards, like a bulk rare from Innistrad, a common from 4th edition? Am I evil?
No, not at all. I'll tell you what, to very much my own like regret, I used to cut up and like just like throw away Fulminator mages and stuff like that, because at the time in Standard that card was completely useless. And I definitely regret that. When Fulminator like spiked up or whatever when Modern came around. I will say that, destroy your own cards at your own risk, because at some point they could be worth something. But if it's just like basic forests and stuff like that, I don't think that's bad at all. I mean, especially if you're trying to turn it like you're trying to alter something, and like I've had tons of friends who also like use bulk as a way to test their way to like do extended border arts and stuff like that. So
yeah, I do not have any problem with people destroying their own Magic cards. Like I don't know. I could see how people get mad. We've had some people that like, I'm gonna like buy a Black Lotus and set it on fire and post it on YouTube. I could see, but that's like designed to get a reaction out of people and troll people. But if you're doing like art projects and stuff like that, I don't know. I've never really understood why people get so upset about flip it and rip it in games like that. Like, you own it. It's your card. There's hundreds of thousands or millions of them out there. Like, does it really matter to you if someone flips and rips a pack of Modern Masters or something?
Seth, did you ever watch a show called Yu-Gi-Oh? I just assume not, right?
No, I have not.
Anime.
Yeah, okay. See, so there's a character, his name is Seto Kaiba, right? So in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh, in this world, there's a card, it's called Blue Eyes White Dragon.
I do know what that is, because I have bought Yu-Gi-Oh cards in the past. So.
Okay then, okay. So, in this world, there's like 5 copies or 4 copies, he actually goes around buying out the other copies and then ripping them so that he's the only person that has them. Now, is that like with the like no reprints? Technically, you could try to go around, buy every Black Lotus and all the packs and rip every copy that you have, so that you're the only one to have them.
Do you guys remember Seance Guy? I think someone actually tried to do that in Magic, in the real world, with the card Seance. I don't know if you remember this from a few years ago.
I do.
But there was a guy that was putting out like huge bounties for you to like get seances and destroy them and like show video proof of it. I don't know why it was Seance, a card that doesn't have any value, but I think someone actually tried and failed to do that in Magic already.
Did the price of Seance ever move?
No, it didn't. It did not go up at all.
I feel like the stock on that is just too much.
On a more serious note, I think you should destroy cards at your will. I don't know why people get so upset about flip it or rip it. One of the most liberating things I've ever done is just throw out basic lands. I used to hoard basic lands like no tomorrow. Okay, I'm like, it just felt like such a waste to throw them away. And then one day I threw them away. I'm like, wow, so much space was reclaimed, right? Like all these like basic lands, even like bulk commons. Like if you can donate them to your LGS, then donate them to your LGS or like a school or something. But if you can't, just throw them away, right? It's like 50 cents of cards that takes up like an entire shelf or like an entire storage room or something. Like, just get rid of them. But as long as you're okay with the potential that, you know, there's an uncommon in there and one day that uncommon might be $5 and then you'll feel bad. But like, was it worth hoarding all these cards? You know, does it spark joy? Like if you guys watch Marie Kondo, like just throw it out. Like you don't need to hoard every Magic card ever made. A lot of them are just not worth anything. And if they're not worth anything to you, then cut them up, make art, right? The new art will be worth way more than whatever cardboard was there before. So yeah, I would just go ahead and do it. Aloha Mage. When using multiples of commons and uncommon wild cards on Arena to trade up for rare mythics, help the economy. If you have if your commons and uncommons you already have 4 of, got turned into shards of uncommon or common wild cards, same way as rares turn into gems.
Wait, what? Say that again?
Can you say that one more? Yeah.
If your commons and uncommons that you already have 4 of, you turn them into common or uncommon wild cards. Same way rares turn into gems. So like you get enough of like extra common and uncommon wild card shards, and then you make them into like a rare wild card.
So yeah, like eventually your uncommons and commons could become a rare, or maybe even mythic after a certain point.
That would break the economy because we get so many of them.
I mean, it would obviously be great if they did it for players, but I can't imagine that Wizards would ever go for it, unfortunately.
Yeah, because then why would you buy packs, right? Like at all? Because because then these would all roll over. As great as it would be, like these would all roll over to the next set, and then you just kind of just have a free set every time.
All right. Next question. Unbala blah blah blah. That's literally the name. I'm going with it. How would you feel about a card that read, for the rest of the game, no card may leave the exile zone, aka removed from the game? What if our zones did what they were supposed to do?
Yeah.
Remember a time when things went into the exile, it stayed in the exile.
Except Mist Hollow Griffin, right?
I mean, I'd be fine with that card, but is there actually enough stuff leaving exile to make it playable anywhere at this point? Like,
I mean,
I don't know. I don't know when I would ever play that card, but I don't know, I'd be fine with it existing, I guess, and then you can hose whatever food chain or something. Like if it comes to it,
it would be like that would be if that card exists, then that means something has gone very wrong, I think. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like this timeline where that card exists, that means there's like, I don't know, an underworld breach or something, but for exile. You may cast cards from exile. What? So Earl can feed into it?
You O-ring something, right? And now it's O-ring forever with this thing in here, even if the O-ring gets removed. You can, right? There's like gameplay. Like if you put this on like a Thalia Hate Bear or something, like a two mana 2/1 first strike or something, then you can play all your like white enchantment removal or something without risk. Maybe something like that.
Oh, it'd make Flicker Wisp really good. Okay.
Yeah.
If that was on a Hate Bear, that might actually see Modern play. Okay. I could see that on Hate Bear. I think I'd still be fine with it, actually. It actually sounds kind of
But
interesting.
I would like the zones to do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Exile and Graveyard. Like, what's the difference between these zones anymore? Like, I'm not even sure. They're all like the same thing now. So,
Do you think we'll get an Exile reanimation spell at some point in the near future?
Ooh.
Just like put target creature from the Exile
Or
zone
Planeswalker.
onto the battlefield under your control or something, yeah.
I'm waiting for emblem removal.
Nope.
Yeah, I thought
It's
you
gonna
were
happen.
going to get that with War of the Spark.
It's gonna happen.
Nope.
It's gonna happen. Then you're like, what is the point of an emblem anymore?
Exactly. Like once an emblem removal is like something that exists, why play a Planeswalker?
What's the point of Exile Zone when you have Graveyard Zone? I don't know, Krim.
Exile Zone should mean that it is gone, though, right? Like it is gone. Outside of like the few like meme cards, like like Mist Hollow Griffin, which is actually like not a meme in some other formats, I guess. But like, yeah, I don't know.
Maybe we need Mega Exile. Like that's the
Bigger
that's the
exile.
Exile Zone. Yes, that's the one that it doesn't come back from. If it goes to Mega Exile, it's really gone.
Mega Exile. We'll pitch that on the next great designer search or whatever. I'm sure it'll be a smash.
It'll be then it'll errata things exiled by Uro are sent to Mega Exile. Also, just reading Mega Exile hurts my head. Like, why does this exist?
That'll be Earl's next keyword, Mega Exile. All right. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions. If you have questions, you can send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we get to your questions on air.
And on that note, I believe that brings us to the end of episode 304 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard, Krim, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Spikes Academy for supporting the show. And we will be back next week to talk about whatever goes down in the world of Magic. Until then, have a wonderful week, everyone. If you're in the US, have a happy Thanksgiving. And this is the crew signing out.